Hello everyone! When one enters the Undercity, they cannot help but pass the tomb of King Terenas Menethil II. On it is a plaque that reads, "Here lies King Terenas Menethil II, last true king of Lordaeron. Great were his deeds, long was his reign, unthinkable was his death. May the father lie blameless for the deeds of the son. May the bloodied crown stay lost and forgotten." King Terenas ruled the kingdom of Lordaeron for many years. He was wise enough to see that the different kingdoms needed to band together against the first invasion of the hordes, that they needed to form the Alliance of Lordaeron. His son Arthas was raised to be a good ruler when his time would come, trained in the ways of the paladin, accepted amongst the knights of the Silver Hands, while his daughter Kalia was almost married off to Deathwing in disguise, and she couldn't be open about her love for a Lordaeron footman, a love that gave birth to a child, and Kalia's mother promised that once Arthas was properly wed and had produced an heir, they would acknowledge Kalia's daughter and possibly elevate her husband to a nobleman's status. Obviously, those dreams for the future wouldn't become a reality. The plague, it hit the lands of Lordaeron, and on his road to damnation, Arthas decided to pick up Frostmourne, claim vengeance upon Melganis, and returned home as an agent of the Lich King.
Ah, my son.
You no longer need to sacrifice for your people. You no longer need to bear the weight of your crown. I've taken care of everything. Succeeding you, father.
For many, many years, people have wondered what happened to the crown, how this tomb was built, and why exactly. With exploring Azeroth, the Eastern Kingdoms, we finally get some answers. The book is a story on how Flynn, Fairwind, and Matthias they have this romantic holiday disguised as traveling across the Eastern Kingdoms for king and country, as they chronicle its history and catalogue the weapons, armor, and powers untold that are scattered across this sprawling dominion. While they catalogue what's going on in the world, Flynn brings that information together and makes a miraculous discovery. I'll go over the bits that are important for today's video. If you want all the details, descriptions, and the artworks, I would recommend picking up the book.
Ahoy!
So the journey, it begins within Stormwind. The lighthouse on a small island nearby has sat empty for some time. The harbor has been expanded in recent years and is much safer to enter than in the past. There's a tombstone nearby, likely the resting place of a long ago keeper, but time has faded the inscription. A lower priority, and a task for another day. At Bloodied Bay, ships coming into the harbor used to be greeted by an open-armed statue of an unknown goblin, known as Genero's Point. Regrettably, the cataclysm damaged only part of this structure, with the revelation that the statue was hollow. We've discovered all kinds of things in its innards: captives, animals, squatters, illicit substances, rotted bodies, eloping couples, and once a tarnished crown. It's a mess, I fear, but one we must regularly investigate. Stromgarde Keep was a seat of power for hundreds of years before the death of King Terenas. It became a crucial defense hold for the Alliance during the Fourth War, the battle for Azeroth. While we protected and rebuilt it as our stronghold, the Horde was quick to take Untold Manor for theirs. The abandoned farm, once a hotbed in syndicate activity, was quickly turned into a powerful Horde base of operations in Arathi. Proudly, the Alliance triumphed here in the end. I've heard that some members of the Horde believe that those who fell in battle in these highlands now haunt the ruins of Argarok, angry at their defeats and craving revenge. The Trollbanes have had interesting relationships with death and undeath. Their family crypt has been far busier than most. Dunav's uncle, the aforementioned King Thoras Trollbane, was murdered by his son Galen. He died sometime after his dear friend, King Terenas Menethil II, perished in the same horrible manner. Galen was then killed by the hordes, only to be raised as a Forsaken to serve Sylvanas. Unable to stay loyal to anyone, it seems, Galen led a rebellion to reclaim Stromgarde. He failed in his efforts and was targeted by the Ebon Blade, who killed him and then proceeded to raise his father as one of their 4 horsemen. I once overheard Danav muttering that when he died, he'd better be cremated, and I don't blame him. Ashes cannot wield a weapon as the undead can. Stromgarde's Keep's church is known as the Sanctum. Danav has generally given his blessing to me to routinely survey what remains in the Sanctum's crypts. The crypt itself is easy to miss, as it's tucked away behind the church proper. For a long time, the only company that King Thoras had was his mighty sword Trollklaar, or Trollslayer. It was a precious family heirloom and a weapon of great power. Both king and sword were thought safe here, but Trollklaar was stolen. Presently, its whereabouts are unknown. And the last time I was here, King Thoras had only recently vacated his tomb. It was an unpleasant surprise to see it open and empty. The event did, however, reveal that a single plaque with a memorial verse has been placed inside the coffin at eye level with the corpse. Here lie, alone, the last of mortal bones, of one who walked midst kings and crowns and thrones, one strong and bold, of trolls the very bane. Ah, Thoras, how doth fortune wax and wane. I now am carrion, to dust returned. Mark ye well the lesson I have learned. No man or king forever lives lay down all that keeps your spirit worldly bounds. Your bow, your steel, your crown incarnadine. Prepare to keep the secret that was mine. Bury it, forget, and leave it lost. For others come the light, but not for me. Tread not my path, do not an island be. Then at Silvermoon and the Isle of Quel'Danas, they mentioned the sibling blades Quel'Dalar and Quel'Sarar. Both these prismatic blades were forged by the Night Elves and their 5 dragonflights. Powerful, magical, and especially dangerous to the Scourge. Quel'Dalar was wielded by one of the High Elves, who guarded the Sunwell from Arthas, while Quel'Sarar was gifted to the Night Elves. Both blades are now rumored to be borne by new masters. Sometimes, powerful weapons appear to not be content with being lost and forgotten. Illyria Windrunner says that she knows that one day, Silvermoon will once again stand with the Alliance. Shaw doesn't know if that's simply a hope, the whispers that she claims to hear, or if she's seen it in her vision. From Silvermoon, they then travel to the Tirisfal Glades, passing South Shore along the way. Before the end of the Fourth War, the Alliance was finally able to reclaim the ruins of South Shore, and they're still working on driving out the remaining threats. Hopefully, this does not affect the armistice, or the work that Kalia and Lillian are doing. A war that started with the burning of Teldrassil, quickly followed by the siege of Lordaeron. It is with sadness, but not regret, that I report the Alliance has recently inflicted its own massive wound upon this land. It was necessary to bring the troops and equipment needed for the Battle of Lordaeron. Our king is always reluctant to resort to violence, but he was well aware that Sylvanas needed to be held accountable for the slaughter of so many at Teldrassil. So much heavy weaponry, horses and people necessitated felling trees and churning up the soil. The war begun there is over, but as always, the scars remain. I hope that with time, unlike that scar in the green grass of Eversong Woods, this scar will recover. One day, we will learn how to clear the plague from this area, and will again see green grass and waving trees. Or so I like to tell myself. A poorly kept secret is that the best way for the Alliance to enter the Undercity, that is through the sewers. But once before, and only once, I snuck in through the main entrance. It is nothing that I would have cared to experience ever again. In a very disturbing way, it feels as if Arthas just left. Faint echoes of the broken bell toll barely at the edge of hearing, so like our own comforting cathedral bell, and yet so changed. And in the throne room, old crusted blood still discolors the seal of Lordaeron on the floor. If you stand perfectly still, you'd almost swear that you can make out the echoes of father and son sharing their final words before Terenas was slain. Be it ghosts or the horrible memory this place holds, lingering is ill-advised. It's not uncommon for tombs to be carved long before the occupant's death. Such is the case with Terenas. The words on the plaque were carved by 2 different hands. The first part simply reads, "Here lies King Terenas Menethil II." Of course, it's not true. Arthas stole his father's urn and scattered the meaningless ashes to the winds before they could be interred here, using the urn to house the remains of the Lich Kel'Thuzad. The tomb is completely empty. And then the second part, clearly written after Terenas' brutal death, it reads, "Last true king of Lordaeron. Great were his deeds, long was his reign, unthinkable was his death. May the father lie blameless for the deeds of the son. May the bloodied crown stay lost and forgotten." While we're not sure who added the second part, as I7 believes that it has been done on the order of King Terenas Menethil II, who was once a great friend to Terenas. Those are the pieces that are important out of the book. Now Flynn Fairwind does his magic. He has some official explorer notes to share. Stormwind, crowns, murdered, a tombstone by a lighthouse. Folks from Stormwind came from Lordaeron originally, right? Gynaedos Point, a tarnished crown. Stromgarde Keep, King Terenas Menethil II. He was king of Lordaeron. Wasn't there something cryptic about his crown? That epitaph on King Terenas' grave. Prepare to bury it. Keep the secret. Do not an island be. He and Terenas were friends. Did they mean something to be buried on an island? Silvermoon, lost and forgotten. That's got me thinking. Lost and forgotten. Tirisfall Glades, grotesque poetry, like those epitaphs we keep seeing all over the place. I feel like there's something there, some buried something just waiting to be uncovered. Undercity, blood still crusted on the ground. May the bloodied crown stay lost and forgotten. One less than official report from the great Captain Flynn Fairwind to the devilishly handsome and capable spy master Matthias Shaw. I didn't think I'd be any good at this spy business. Going around the world, learning new things, exploring, all dandy and that. And yet, here I go, sorting out the saddest puzzle I have ever seen. I am writing this down, mostly so you remember for your spy bookkeeping. I'm sure that's a thing you do anyway. Finding all these nuggets of information, it's got my mind spinning about buried treasure of some long-dead kings. Instead, I know where the blooded crown of King Terenas Menethil is. You and I found it, to make sure, and buried it back as it was in that little unattended grave on the lighthouse in Stormwind Harbor. With the King of Lordaeron dead, his body destroyed, and his grave impossible to reach for mourning, the refugees of Lordaeron must have wanted a way to honor their fallen king. This was their quiet, respectful way of doing so. I've saluted many friends lost at sea. Maybe they needed a place to do the same. Either way, the location stays between you and me, just like Terenas wanted. Lip sealed like a vault, cross my heart. Thank you for going back out to that island with me to check my harebrained theory. I think in doing so, we honored some folks who lost everything. So now we know how the tomb in Lordaeron came to be. In an earlier dev interview, they said the tomb was crafted by the ruined city's former citizens. Great were the deeds of Lordaeron's last true king, and his people risked everything to ensure his memory would not be forgotten. A tomb carved far before Arthas showed up and stabbed his father. But an empty tomb all the same, since King Terenas was cremated. A smart move in Warcraft, considering all the necromancy that goes on, but the urn, it still had value to the Scourge. They needed something to safely transport Kel'Thuzad's remains to Silvermoon, defile their son well, and use his magical energies to bring him back as a lich. Arthas was put on the task of retrieving it, not knowing fully what it contained, and not knowing that his former friend and mentor, Uther the Lightbringer, that he was escorting it during the military funeral. He was his last promise to Terenas, to his friend, to make sure his remains were treated with reverence, even after his own son brutally slaughtered him, unaware and unarmed.
Your father ruled this land for 70 years, and you've ground it to dust in a matter of days.
Very dramatic, Uther. Give me the urn, and I'll make sure you die quickly.
The urn holds your father's ashes, Arthas. What, were you hoping to piss on them one last time before you left his kingdom to rot?
I didn't know what it held. Nor does it matter. I'll take what I came for one way or another.
A promise he would die for. But do notice how many of these events, of these characters, now play a role in the story of the Shadowlands. We've got an Uther that's hanging out in Bastion, Kel'Thuzad with the jailer in the Maw, Kil'Thas in Revendreth, and who knows if and when we're gonna see Arthas. His spirit was dropped into the Maw, and while many have been wondering what happened to his body, we're not exactly sure. There is a box in the Stormwind Cemetery, which has the Lordaeron logo on it. It might be inside of that one, or perhaps his body reacted in the same way as Kel'Thuzad did. When Arthas struck down Kel'Thuzad, he quickly decomposed. Or something else entirely different happened. We're not exactly sure. And when it comes to the Bloodied Crown, it could just all be a way to bring the information in the book together. The information, it might mean nothing at all, a little lore nugget for those that care, and yet it could also play a part in the story. The people of Lordaeron found themselves slaughtered by the beloved prince and then turned into undeath. When they regained control, they found their former lives destroyed. The confusion and the hopelessness, it must have been insane, yet there was one that offered them a path. Sylvanas Windrunner brought them all together under the banner of the Forsaken. She gave them a home and a purpose, all aimed at claiming vengeance upon Arthas. As that goal was accomplished, she then decided to abandon them all. She found no reason to keep this tormented undead life going, and decided to throw herself from the top of Icecrown, ending up in hell, in the Maw, and in touch with the jailer. To get back out again, a bargain needed to be made. 9 Valkyr that would take her place in hell upon death, with the added bonus of now being able to resurrect more Forsaken herself. Now her Forsaken, her arrows in a quiver to be shot at any target that she had in mind, they turned into her bulwark against the infinite. That which stood between her and endless suffering. Then she became war chief, and the Forsaken, they started to feel a bit of a void in their leadership. Velcinda Benton decided to create a desolate council to take care of the city in the Dark Lady's absence. Not that they wanted to kick Sylvanas out or anything, but their people, they were in need of leadership, and the Dark Lady's attention was split. What had begun purely as necessity had become something so much more. It had given them a sense of camaraderie and the knowledge that not everybody was content simply to serve without questioning. The Forsaken might not be living, but they did have needs, desires, emotions that were not being met. Their Dark Lady was dead set on finding ways to continue their existence. Like we saw with her mission in Legion, with trying to enslave Ayer and gain the power to create more Valkyr. Yet what started with a clear purpose, vengeance upon Arthas. Now it's some amongst the Forsaken wonder if they're even supposed to go on. How much should they do? How far should they go just to keep existing?
What joy is there in this curse? We are still undead, sister. Still monstrosities. What are we if not slaves to this torment?
They're questioning the very motivation of the Forsaken. Now, this desolate council, it would be wiped out by Sylvanas during a meeting between the living and the undead at Arafi. Then Battle for Azeroth played out, with the Banshee Queen abandoning the Horde, forsakening the Forsaken. Meaning that Lordaeron is without a proper ruler. She was the one that brought the undead citizens of Lordaeron together. And now she's gone, standing at the side of the jailer, where some were already wondering, what is our reason to go on? Now even just serving the Banshee Queen is no longer an option. Sure enough, over the years, some amongst them have definitely built up a relationship of honor and trust and loyalty towards the Horde. But simply existing for the sake of existence, it might not be enough, considering that being undead is not without pain and suffering. With the Bloodied Crown discovered, we might see someone take over for the Dark Lady. I've already dedicated a video to the story of Kalia Menethil, who is the sister to Arthas. In my mind, although clunky, she is being pushed to the forefront as a potential new leader for the Forsaken. Her way of being brought back with the light. It could also fix the problem of not having the Valkyr to add more Forsaken troops to the ranks, and could also make for an interesting customization option. An alternative would be their current representative, Lillian Voss. And with the Shadowlands being open to visits, they might even bring back those that already passed on. Can you imagine Arthas Menethil himself just make a return, place that crown upon his head? I would be very surprised if the people of Lordaeron would even follow Arthas that way. But by all means, let me know what you like to see. Who would you like to take the crown of Lordaeron and place it upon their head? Who would you like to see take over leadership of the Forsaken, the future of Lordaeron? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos. Leave a like if you enjoyed this one. And until next time, see ya!